I never should have gone back to those woods. It was a perfect morning for hunting, the forest cloaked in a heavy fog that muffled even my footsteps. I remember feeling something wasn't right, a nagging dread that started the moment I stepped out of my truck and loaded my rifle. The day began well enough. I tracked a large deer through the underbrush, my excitement building with every careful step. When I finally took my shot, it was clean, or so I thought. But as I approached, I saw the deer's injuries were far worse than my bullet should have caused. Something had mauled it badly before my shot even hit. I should have turned back then, but I didn't. I convinced myself it was just another predator in the woods, maybe a bear, though I knew deep down it wasn't. That's when I heard it, a growl, low and guttural, like nothing I'd ever heard before. A chill ran down my spine. I was being watched. Shadows flickered between the trees, playing tricks on my eyes. Every little sound made me jump, heart hammering in my chest. Then a scream tore through the silence, so fierce it made my blood run cold. I spun around, scanning the trees, just as something crashed through the underbrush towards me. Instinct took over. I ran. Branches whipped my face, roots tried to trip me. The forest, which had always been my refuge, felt like a maze designed to trap me. In my panic, I didn't see the pit until it was almost too late. I fell forward, arms flailing, and somehow managed to grab the edge. Below me, spikes, some with remnants of clothing and dried blood, glistened in the faint light that filtered down. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think, but fear gave me strength, and I pulled myself up and out of what could have been my grave. Stumbling away from the pit, I found a hunter's camp, if you could call it that. It was more like a lair, scattered with belongings that didn't belong to just one person. There were wallets, watches, even photos, water-damaged and fading. That's when it hit me, people had disappeared here, and I was about to join them if I didn't get out. He emerged then, from the shadow of the trees, a man, wild-eyed, with a hunter's cap shadowing his face and a knife that caught the dull morning light. He wasn't large, but there was a madness about him that told me he was more dangerous than any wild animal. His smile was the worst part, it promised pain. "Another hunter," he rasped, his voice as rough as the bark of the trees around us. "You're far from home, aren't you?" I backed away, my hands empty, my rifle long forgotten. He advanced, and I could see now the blood stains on his clothes, the gleam in his eyes. I had become the hunted. I dodged around a tree, and he followed, enjoying the chase. But survival instinct is a powerful thing. I grabbed a heavy branch and swung it with all my might. It connected, and he staggered back, stunned but not down. It bought me enough time to run, to put distance between us. I didn't stop running until I saw the outline of my truck through the trees. My whole body shook as I fumbled for the keys, threw myself inside, and locked the doors. I drove out of there like the devil himself was on my heels. At home, I called the cops, told them everything. They searched, they told me, but found nothing. No camp, no traps, no sign of any other hunter. They looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe it was all some fever dream of fear. But sometimes, late at night, I hear that scream, that terrible, inhuman scream, and I wonder if he's still out there, in those woods, waiting for the next hunter to wander into his traps. I don't hunt anymore. I don't even go near the woods. I just listen to the wind and hope it's just the wind I'm hearing. Because I know what I saw. I know what chased me. And I know how lucky I am to be here, telling you this story. So take my advice, stay out of those woods. Some places, they don't want to be found. And some hunters, they don't hunt deer. They hunt men. I never should have gone back to Ravens Hollow. That forest had a reputation, a bad one, and old-timers around here avoided it like a curse. But I was never one to shy away from a challenge or a thrill. This time, though, the thrill turned into a nightmare. It all started on a crisp autumn morning. The sun had barely peeked over the horizon when I loaded up my truck with my hunting gear and set off towards the hollow. The locals muttered about a beast in those woods, something that wasn't right, a creature that didn't belong in this world. I thought they were just spinning tales to scare off outsiders. I should have listened. As I approached the dense tree line that marked the beginning of Raven's Hollow, a chill ran down my spine. Ignoring it, I drove deeper into the forest and set up camp near a steep ravine, the very heart of all those whispered legends. The place had an eerie quiet, the kind that makes your ears strain for any sound. As darkness fell, the forest didn't settle into the nighttime chorus I was used to. Instead, it fell eerily silent, as if holding its breath. That night, as I lay in my tent, the silence was broken by something far more unsettling. There were growls, low and guttural, not like any animal I'd ever heard. Then came the heavy, dragging footsteps that seemed to circle around the camp. My heart pounded in my chest as I gripped my rifle, straining to see through the darkness that my flashlight couldn't penetrate. At the first light of dawn, I decided to track whatever was out there. Maybe it was a bear, I told myself, maybe something else, something explainable. I followed a set of bizarre, large paw prints that led deeper into the forest. The tracks were unlike anything I had ever seen. They were too large, too irregular. The deeper I went, the more an unnerving feeling took hold of me. The trees seemed to close in, the path twisted in ways that didn't make sense, and all the while, those growls echoed from a not too far distance. Suddenly, it was there, in a clearing, the beast. It was a grotesque, monstrous thing with patches of matted fur and bones that jutted out from its skin. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red as it fixed its gaze on me. Its teeth were like shards of glass, sharp and waiting. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I knew it was too late for that. I raised my rifle, and just as I pulled the trigger, the beast leapt. The shot went wide, and the creature vanished into the thickets as quickly as it had appeared. My heart was racing, my breath shallow. I knew I had to get back to camp, had to get out of there. But when I returned, my gear was strewn about, my supplies ransacked. It was playing with me, whatever it was. That second night was a torment of nerves. The creature toyed with me, its growl surrounding the camp, moving in and then fading away into the fog that rolled in with the night. It was hunting me, and I was trapped. With no way out until morning, I prepared for a fight. I set traps around the perimeter of the camp with what little I had left and waited with my rifle in hand and a hunting knife by my side. The air grew cold, colder than any night I remember, as if the beast brought the chill of the grave with it. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound was a potential attack. And then, with a ferocity that shook the earth, it attacked again. The battle was fierce and desperate. In a frantic struggle, I managed to drive it into one of the traps, injuring it badly. The creature howled in pain, a sound so harrowing it froze my blood. We fought, tooth and nail and rifle butt, until finally, it stumbled back into the darkness of the forest, leaving a trail of blood. I didn't wait to see if it would come back. As the sun rose, I limped out of Raven's Hollow, my body bruised and battered, my spirit broken. I knew I'd never return, knew that some places are left alone for a reason. And as I drove away, I could almost feel its eyes on me, watching from the shadows, waiting. I've always loved the quiet of the forest just before dawn, but today the silence feels different, thicker, almost waiting. My name's Ian, and hunting's been my alone time. Today was supposed to be no exception. I parked my truck by the old trailhead, the mist hanging low, dampening the usual morning chorus of the woods. It should have been like any other hunt. Setting up at my usual spot, a clearing with good sight lines, I loaded my rifle, the familiar click of the chamber somehow reassuring amidst the eerie calm. The first light crept timidly through the trees, and that's when I saw it, a deer, just at the edge of the clearing. I took aim, held my breath, and pulled the trigger. The shot broke the silence, echoing off the trees, and the deer bolted, a trail of blood marking its path. Something was off. Deer usually drop not far from where they're hit, but this one kept running. Curiosity piqued, I followed. The blood trail was easy to track at first, but as I ventured deeper into the forest, it took on a bizarre pattern, zigzagging through dense underbrush and leading me to parts of the woods I'd never been. No sounds of birds, not even a squirrel rustling, just my footsteps and the occasional drip of condensation off the leaves. The deeper I went, the less the place felt like the woods I knew. Then, I stumbled upon something that made my skin crawl: a rabbit, or what was left of it, grotesquely displayed in a makeshift trap. It wasn't the work of any predator I knew. This was something else, something human. The realization sent a chill down my spine. I checked my radio for any comforting crackle of the dispatcher's voice. Nothing but static greeted me. That's when the woods no longer felt just silent, they felt predatory. As I pressed on, the signs grew more ominous. I heard a low moan, distant and unnatural, as if the trees themselves were warning me. Shadows seemed to twitch, reacting against the light. I shook the thoughts from my head, telling myself it was just the fear talking. But when a deer's trail ended abruptly at a set of heavy, booted footprints, a different kind of fear took hold. I wasn't alone. Whispers brushed through the trees, circling me. I spun around, eyes straining through the mist. Figures flitted at the edge of my vision, just out of sight, but definitely there. My breath quickened. Every hunter knows the worst thing you can do is panic. But that's easier said than done when you realize you've become the hunted. I ran. Branches whipped against my face, roots threatened to trip me at every step. The whispers turned to chuckles, then to shouts. They were hurting me, playing a game only they understood. I dodged left, then right, a desperate attempt to lose them. A trap snapped shut inches from my foot, the metallic clang ringing out like a death knell. They were setting traps. Not for deer, for me. Adrenaline lent me speed and a desperate cunning. I remembered an old trapper's trick and doubled back, leading them into their own game. I set a trap of my own, using what I had: a broken branch, some rope, and sheer will. Hiding behind a thick tree, I waited, heart pounding in my chest. They were close now, too confident in their hunt. As the first one approached, I pulled the rope, and the branch swung, hitting him square in the chest. He went down with a grunt. The element of surprise lost, the others hesitated, giving me the split second I needed. I bolted, not stopping to see if they followed. The forest began to thin, the first signs of civilization piercing through the trees. I emerged from the woods as the sun rose, its light never more welcome. I didn't stop running until I reached my truck, threw my gear in, and drove without looking back. As I put distance between myself and the forest, the weight of what had happened began to sink in. I'd gone into the woods thinking I was the predator, only to become prey. The line between hunter and hunted blurred and then disappeared. I knew one thing for sure: I'd never hunt again. The woods could keep their secrets, and I'd keep my life.